Oh snap, man! Are you ready? Are you ready? What's up, Ryan? How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How are you doing?
Good, good, bro. It's been a minute since we've been online, but I tell you what, we got to get this party started, and we just got to go ahead and do the intro. So, without further ado, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ring where words pack as much punch as fists. This is Gloves Off with your hosts, the one and only founder and CEO of the Prez Kit Times, San Martin Rodriguez, and joining him, the award-winning sports writer and analyst Ryan O'Hara, ready to dive deep into the heart of combat sports. Together, they're here to break down barriers, bring you the latest insights, and go beyond the surface of boxing, MMA, and all things combat sports. Gloves Off will be airing on all streaming platforms, making sure you're always in the know and part of the action. So put your earbuds in and get ready to have your mind blown. The battle of wits begins now.
Step into the ring and the king on the chin. Boom, punch so fierce, you won't stand a chance. Up and train, up and bright, I'm ready to brawl. Yeah, in the first round, watch you fall. Yeah, it's like now, yeah, we about to throw down. In the arena with the talk of the town.
And live from our studio in Denver, Colorado. Well, my studio. I'm Ryan O'Hara alongside San Martin Rodriguez, and this is episode 2 of the Gloves Off Combat Sports Podcast. San Martin, it's good to hear from you, man. How have you been?
Good to hear from you, man. It seems like we haven't had a conversation in a minute, which is totally true, and we are definitely wanting to go ahead and keep this going in general. But we always got to have things to talk about, and today we kind of went over a few things. But let's recap of the last one real quick. I think our main conversation this past month ago, I think it was almost close to a month ago, was about Ryan. And have you heard anything since then? I mean, has any more of the drama kind of like came out or?
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of been paying attention to it, but honestly, it's just nonsense. You have Garcia saying, I'm not gonna be on social media until the fight. And what's he do the very next day? He says on Twitter, hey, I'm celibate, leave me alone.
Hey, and I tell you what, this is one of those moments in time where it's like you need an actual publicist if you plan on being this big in this community of celebrity status, and it happens, man. You say some stuff and it's going to come against you, and that's the only problem that we're going to have with any of these conversations that are going to be from here on out. But to be honest, man, I love the conversation. I think that a lot of people like to go ahead and have that conversation, like really what's going on. And, in some cases, you actually have a lot of the insights of what's been happening in the MMA world and also the boxing world. But let's go recap about some of the stuff that I saw on your page. It looks like you're going to be going to a few events here shortly. Why don't we talk a little bit about that and what you're going to be covering in the next couple months? And let's see what's up, man. I want to hear more what's going on with you in your world.
So I'm going to be covering the Canelo Alvarez-Jaime Munguia fight in Las Vegas on May 4th. It's going to be on PBC pay-per-view as well. I think DAZN is also going to have a pay-per-view event as well on their outlet. So should be a good fight. Canelo obviously, he's a little bit older. He's had a lot of fights. So there's a question if he still got it. Jaime Munguia is an extremely impressive offensive-minded machine, but he doesn't exactly have good defense. And if Canelo still has, that elite counterpunching ability that he's displayed throughout his career, I think we're going to see a really exciting fight. And, if Canelo is on his A game, I think he's going to win by knockout, but it's not going to be easy because Munguia is going to be, in his face the whole fight. And, fighters who have, pressured Canelo tend to have a little bit more success. And, with the exception of James Kirkland. James Kirkland got knocked out pretty viciously back in 2014 in Houston. Random fact, that fight actually took place at I don't know what the baseball park is named now, where the Houston Astros play, but I know when they fought, it was still Minute Maid Park. So that's where that fight took place. But really looking forward to that fight, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm taking Canelo by knockout.
Dang, man. Some big words right there. And the best part about this is that, you have the insights. You've actually been really, really hyper focused on the boxing scenario. Give a little bit of a history on how long you've actually been doing the whole sports journalism for boxing.
It's been since about 2013, 2012. I've always been a journalist. I was in NASCAR for a bit, kind of got tired of it. So I went into the boxing route. You know, Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Marquez, the fourth fight, was the first fight I wrote about. And then it wasn't until about 2014 that I actually got hired with the boxingvoice.com, which is now one of the most premier outlets. If you see them on Instagram, they're everywhere. Extremely, I don't know how many followers they have, but you know, it's quite a bit. So I was really proud to be a part of them for the time that I was. So yeah, so that's how long I've been around. So I've been around almost, I guess this is technically the 10-year. Well, that's kind of crazy. That totally just realized that.
And when you put it into perspective, you're just like, man, what happened to 10 years, man? It
I
just
know.
came and
Now
go.
I'm 30 years old. What's going on?
Well, you know what? It's a good thing that you're involved, man, and a good thing that you have a passion for the sport. And you know what? People are always saying, you know, they feel like boxing is dying and the sport is not doing what it was doing back in the days. But we've been seeing a couple of things that have been popping up as regards to boxing in general. And today's conversation is going to be about a couple of matches that you say that are not going to happen and will happen. So let's get into that, man. What is the next event that we want to talk about?
Well, when people say boxing is dying or boxing a niche sport, I mean, they're not wrong. Boxing is a niche sport, and it's not exactly in a great position. So, you know, PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, they basically got booted off of Showtime. You know, Paramount kicked out everybody. You know, their entire sports division doesn't exist anymore. But if you look at what PBC did on Showtime, they had a great 2023 campaign. You know, they had a great 2023, but you know, people conveniently forget how bad the other years were. 21 and 22 weren't that great. 2016, 2017, you have to ask yourself, what happened to the deal with Fox, with Bounce, with Spike? All those deals fell through. And now they're trying to impress Amazon. And when you're trying to impress a new company in a new entity going into a new year, you would think that the first thing you would do is to make a good first impression, right?
You would think.
you would think. So their idea was to take Tim Tszyu, who is the WBO junior middleweight champion, so 154 pounds. So their idea was to have him fight Keith Thurman at a catch weight of 155 because the WBO refused to sanction the fight because it was going to be at a catch weight. So it was basically a meaningless fight. So that's their first fight. We're going to bring out a guy in Keith Thurman who has fought just twice in the last 1,715 days. And kind of, and let's be real, Thurman is a good fighter. He's never been in a boring fight, but the rigors of inactivity generally cause injuries because you have to lose the weight. You basically have to overtrain to get in shape, and then that exacerbates the possibility of you getting hurt, which is what happened. So Tszyu was training for Keith Thurman. Thurman has a bicep injury 2 weeks out of the fight. And so Thurman's not fighting now. And instead, Sebastian Fundora is now fighting Tim Tszyu. Now, Sebastian Fundora is coming off a fight in April in which he was brutally knocked out by Brian Mendoza in the 7th round of that fight. And Brian Mendoza also lost to Tszyu last year. So the question people should be asking, was there a better option for Tim Tszyu for the debut of PBC on Amazon, on Prime Video? I would say that there was a better option. And, you know, Keith Thurman is a career-long 147-pounder. So you're asking a guy who hasn't fought in, it feels like centuries in the boxing world. He hasn't fought in forever. They're asking him to move up in weight. It just backfired. It was a risky proposition because, like I said, Thurman, you know, is a really exciting fighter. He's never been boring. He knows how to sell a fight. He knows how to talk. You know, I guess he was saying, you know, Mexican Tszyu, what are you going to do? Making, you know, stupid rhymes and that sort of thing. That's just what Thurman does. But it was just a bad risk, which backfired. And now Tszyu is fighting Fundora. Fundora was already set to be on the card. He was going to fight for a vacant world title against Serhei Bohachuk, who I believe is I think he's from Ukraine. Bohachuk was knocked out a few fights ago, but he's been on a winning streak. But from my perspective, Tszyu is an exciting, you know, pressure fighter. Bohachuk is an exciting pressure fighter. From my perspective, that should have been the fight all along, was Tszyu and Bohachuk. because Bohacek is already at 154 pounds. So there was no need to have a catch weight because Thurman had to move up in weight. Bohacek's already there. They should have made that fight. Because if you're thinking like I am, you want to put on an exciting fight for the fans, for not just the fans, but you want to impress your new boss, right? Boom, here's your first fight, an exciting fight. Don't put it on pay-per-view. And that was another issue with Thurman Tszyu, was that they were going to make the pay-per-view $74.99. So you're already paying $139.95 for the annual membership fee. Then they're asking you to pay an additional $75 basically to watch a fighter who hasn't fought in forever against a guy who's been extremely active. Who do you think is going to win? It's the extremely active fighter. It's an obvious one to me. But if you have, two guys with similar styles going at each other and have a war and put it on free Amazon, because businesses, they have free trials and whatnot. PBC's like, no, you're going to pay an additional $75 for this, and they're even going to make you pay $70 for Tszyu and Fundora. So yeah, you get a slight discount, but a slight discount for a one-sided fight. Fundora is not going to win. I mean, yes, Fundora is he's a 6'6", 154 pounder. He's a damn giraffe. He's a giraffe, but to be in my opinion, he's not exactly. I wouldn't say that he's a good fighter. He's just he's extremely awkward because he's a Gigantosaurus. And Brian Mendoza proved last year that, well, the Gigantosaurus can be brought down.
Yeah, which is a pretty big deal to go ahead and do, especially if you have a giraffe. That's so funny. So here is one battle that is going down. I know that you also have thought about another battle. And what was the other one that you were going to go ahead and see?
Not in person. I'm not sure. I know that we wanted to go into detail about what happened with Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou, since we didn't, get a chance to talk about it. But it kind of makes me laugh that some people actually thought that this is going to be a competitive fight based on what happened with, the fight with Tyson Fury. But like I said, the fact of the matter is Tyson Fury is a hero for dad bods. Like if you're a dad bod guy, Tyson Fury is your hero because he's the heavyweight world champion and he's got a dad bod. But I think he didn't take it too seriously. He was probably at least 300 pounds when he fought Ngannou. His balance was all off. Ngannou dropped him. It was just a bad fight. It was just a bad look for boxing. But if you know Anthony Joshua, that guy, even though he hasn't won all of his fights and he lost to Andy Ruiz, he lost to Usyk twice, but he takes his craft extremely seriously. And I knew he was going to blow out Ngannou. It was just a matter of time. And yeah, it was brutal.
It was brutal, he says.
It was brutal. I mean, the moment that straight right hand landed, Ngannou looked like he was on a different planet, man. They probably should have stopped it right there. But the ref, for some reason, let it go on, and ouch. He just had to get hit again.
So I'm looking at your page over here, and I know that there's some things that we wanted to talk about, but these are, how old are these stories, and where do you find these stories at? On Fights?
Fightsaroundtheworld.com, fightsatw.com. I will actually be covering the Canelo Munguia fight for that outlet and with Abe Gonzalez. Abe hired me on, and yeah, and Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall, actually that fight has now been postponed because Taylor got injured. Like I said earlier, fighters who have been inactive, they overtrain to get into shape, and well, they get hurt. So now that fight has been pushed. I believe it's been pushed back to May or June. So we don't have to wait too much longer for that. And of course, you got Devin Haney and Garcia fighting on 4/20.
April 20th, man.
But it's going to be in New York. So initially they were thinking Las Vegas, but it's going to be New York now.
Well, there's a lot of craziness going on in the fight world, my friend. And I tell you what, it doesn't seem like a lot of people are really like, the fighters in general, they don't take it. Do you feel like they don't take it too serious to the point where they're trying to go ahead and make the boxing world a good sport to watch and be a part of? I mean, what do you think is wrong with this? What do you think that they need to do besides, Well, you said it earlier. You said create a buzz. You pick the fights that are going to be best for the fans. Is that the equation that we're going to need in order for people to go ahead and start watching boxing again?
Well, the problem is that it's American boxing. That's the problem. You know, boxing in Japan, they don't have this issue. Boxing in Russia and Germany, they don't really have this issue. It's an American boxing because everyone's involved. When everyone's involved, you have different companies and different managers and whatnot. Sorry, I hit my microphone there. That different managers that they don't want to work with each other. So I'll give you an example. Adonis Stevenson and Sergey Kovalev were with HBO back in like 2012. That would have been a great fight. But Adonis Stevenson didn't want to fight Sergey Kovalev. So he intentionally let his contract with HBO die, signed a contract with Showtime, and then he was on the other side, and both sides, they couldn't come to an agreement anymore. He literally ran to another network, so he didn't have to fight Sergey Kovalev. So you have that, like I said, you don't have these issues in other countries. And, you know, PBC's like image for Amazon Prime. I mean, I get why they're making all these pay-per-views for Amazon. And there's going to be some non-pay-per-views as well. I'm hearing Jaron Boots Ennis is going to be on the non-pay-per-view, which is nice. But Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora is not worth $70, let alone $10. I'm not going to lie to you. It is not a pay-per-view fight. They don't have that star power. Tim Tszyu will have that star power eventually because he's an Australian guy. He's extremely popular in his home country, and he's trying to expand his brand in the U.S. He will eventually get there. You know, if he fights Jermell Charlo, for instance. Unfortunately, Jermell is now, quote unquote, WBC's champion in recess, which basically means I'm not fighting right now. He's having some legal trouble after he allegedly socked his girlfriend in the face. And obviously that is not good if you're trying to stay clean. But yeah, Amazon Prime has 230 million Prime members. And let's say, you know, I wouldn't say a good percentage, but let's say a good number of people buy that pay-per-view. 400,000. I'm not a mathematician, but that's $30 million. But here's the problem. You have to think from a long-term perspective. If you guys continue to put like $70 pay-per-view, $74 pay-per-views that aren't worth $70 to $74, do you think that these Amazon Prime members are going to be willing to pay an additional $70 to $74 each time, like on a consistent basis? No. Now, if you put on a good product consistently, yeah, there's a good chance that those guys are going to come back, but you need to provide a product that is exciting. Now, if you put two fighters that aren't pay-per-view worthy on pay-per-view, the fans are going to respond accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, let's just talk a little bit about Tyson and Paul. Like those two fights, right? That fight right there is definitely going to bring people to stream online. I mean, one, you got the oldest fighter in the game going out to go ahead and do whatever type of match he's going to do, but you know, he's making it worthwhile. Like his little reels that he's popping up, he says, "Hey, are you sure you want to keep going?" Like he's egging it on to the point where it's like, dude, I want to see it. I think a lot of people want to see it. Some of the rules that are going across, like the rumor mill. I mean, those are the things that kind of like really push it up. I think Ryan tried to do it, but I don't know if he did it intentionally to make it sound crazy. But you know, people are interested. People are wanting to hear more of it. So you think the drama needs to come in like it was like WWF, or I mean, like, does it have to come with drama, or does it have to come with, like, you know, a well-rounded fighter that people want to see?
Well, the way I look at it, if you have a fighter who is naturally amazing at marketing himself, like Floyd Mayweather Jr., he was a naturally gifted athlete who knew how to talk to people, who knew how to, you know, speak into a camera and rile people up. That was he had a natural ability at that. Not everyone has that. Terrence Crawford, very quiet, very humble, very soft-spoken. He lets his hands do the talking. You know, his pay-per-view numbers traditionally have not been very high. Errol Spence, his numbers were better than Crawford's, but I wouldn't necessarily say that he was great at marketing himself. Now, when you have those fighters, when you have those great fighters that aren't really good at, you know, causing that sort of issue, that's when the promoter steps in. That's the job of the promoter. Your job is to promote. Now Mayweather, of course, he was pretty much his own promoter. He didn't need his promoter to do the talking because he did all the talking. So I don't necessarily think that we definitely don't need like, people to act crazy or anything. If you saw any of the build up to the Mayweather McGregor fight, it was just, I mean, it was beyond trash talk. It was kind of just demeaning and disgusting at certain points. You guys can probably look that up for yourself and see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I just think that we just need to put on better fights. I mean, that's the first thing. We need to put on better matchups. Virgil Ortiz Jr., he's not a world champion yet, but he will be someday. He was fighting at welterweight for a while, and now he's competing at junior middleweight. He will be fighting Thomas Delorme in April. And I'm just going to be very honest. Delorme is going to get destroyed in one round.
You heard it here first. Destroyed.
I mean, seriously. I mean, Jaron Ennis, he's a top welterweight. He destroyed Thomas Delorme in a round. Virgil, he's on that same level. He will probably knock out Delorme in a round. And it's disappointing because Golden Boy, who promotes Virgil Ortiz Jr., is traditionally very good at matchmaking, at making good matchups. This matchup stinks, not going to lie. And I used to work for the Ring Magazine, which is associated with Golden Boy Promotions. That matchup stinks. They need to get Virgil in a better fight. I understand that he needs to stay active, but someone a little bit better than a Delorme probably would be, a better alternative, I think. One thing I learned in boxing, getting a first round knockout is not always a good thing. Not always a good thing because you're not getting, you're not getting enough experience. And I think Deontay Wilder kind of went through that at times. He had a bunch of first round knockouts, but once he started, fighting tougher competition, he found it harder and more difficult. And eventually, I think it kind of caught up to him. He kind of started believing that his power could get him out of every fight, and for the most part, it was true. But lately, that hasn't been the case. I don't think Virgil's going to fall into that trap. I think he's too talented for that. I personally think that Virgil would beat Tim Tszyu, but I think his team needs to get him in better fights, and that's all I'm asking for: better fights and better opposition.
So let's talk a little bit about better fights in general. Did you see the remark that well, I don't know if it technically came from Dana White, but did you see the remarks that came out just recently with him being upset with the whole fight? And this headline right here says UFC CEO Dana White isn't happy with Mike Tyson fighting Jake Paul. And here's a quote, unquote. I love Mike, but when the fight happens, he's going to be 58 years old. It'll be a 31-year age difference. Jake Paul did fight a kid his age, and he lost. If he beats Mike Tyson, he's going to fight Clint Eastwood next. Now, that is a little bit funny, but Nico, and I don't know who Nico is, but he says scumbag Dana is just upset that he won't be making the millions off of this fight, which is fairly true. I mean, like, if you didn't sign that contract and you didn't make it happen, then, I would be a little bit upset. And that whole FOMO effect of like, why didn't I think of this would come into play,
Exactly.
Like this is going to be one of those moments in life where you're just like, what, make the matches that go ahead and bring the people to the table. And I think that is what we really need in the boxing world. I mean, the MMA has been doing it for a minute. I just recently watched it was a documentary about the man that started N1. Is it Japan's N1 or what
Something
are they?
like that.
Something in N1, but his revenue stream is way more than Dana White's. But it's like they have a little bit of a feud because this guy is taking over the world and Dana's taking over America, and this is like, two agencies that are really, really trying their hardest to go ahead and keep the fans in tune and also paying the pay-per-view prices. And I'm thinking that, what, boxing needs the same thing. Do you see anybody coming down the pipes that are going to be the new it factor?
Man, the new it factor, man, not really. I mean, honestly, there's not a ton of there's not a whole lot of fighters I can get really excited about. There's Terrence Crawford. He's one of my favorite fighters. He doesn't fight very often. I think he's might be fighting Chris Eubank Jr. next, but that's going to be a middleweight fight. That'll be interesting. It's weird because Eubank Jr. in his last fight knocked out Liam Smith, and he was trained by Bomac McIntyre, who is Crawford's trainer. Now he's fighting Crawford. I'm assuming Bomac's going back to Bud because they've been together for so long. So Eubank was trained by Bomac, and now Bomac's going back to Bud, and now Bud's going to have all this information, and it's probably going to knock out Eubank. Let's be real. I think Crawford's going to win that fight pretty easily, even though he's moving up in weight. Crawford's he's a generational fighter. Now, who else? Teofimo Lopez. Yeah, when he's exciting, he's exciting, and when he's not exciting, he's really not exciting. He's either in a great fight or he's in a boring fight. And yeah, he doesn't fight too often either. Inoue is incredible. Love watching Naoya Inoue. He definitely is the it factor. He'll probably win a couple more world titles and a few more weight classes before he retires. And Alexander Usyk. He doesn't fight too often, but when he does, he's tremendous. But unfortunately, he was supposed to fight Fury earlier this year, but Fury got hurt, so they're still in line to fight for the Undisputed Championship. But going back to Dana White for a second, because I was just thinking in my head, a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, well, if boxers go and fight in UFC, they're going to get knocked out. Honestly, I kind of see it as irrelevant. The reason why we will never see a premier boxer go to UFC and fight a UFC fighter, not because he's afraid of losing, it's because the money's not right. So in boxing, you get overpaid, and in UFC, you get underpaid. Both things can be true. A lot of fighters get overpaid in boxing. They get paid, basically non-commensurate to their value. Some people get underpaid, but most fighters, get that high rate. At least to the top fighters. But the top fighters in UFC get nothing even close to the top fighters in boxing. So that's why a lot of the fighters in UFC, they want that boxing pay. So they go over and they're willing to get their brains blown out just to make a couple $1 million. And that's an unfortunate reality. Dana needs to pay his fighters more, but that's not my decision.
Kind of crazy scenario. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and get the final reviews of what's going to be happening here shortly, and telling everybody where to follow you and how to go ahead and keep in touch with the world that you live in.
All right. Well, the world of boxing is a weird one, but you can follow me at fightsatw.com, fights around the world, and New York Fights, nyfights.com. You can follow me there as well. Also on Twitter, X. I call it Twitter because X sounds weird, but O'Hara Sports. You can follow me on there. And if you want live entertainment on Facebook, I can also provide that.
And that's what we talk about. And then we hope to go ahead and hook you guys up every week if time permits. I mean, obviously Ryan's in Colorado, I'm in Prescott, Arizona, and to go ahead and line it up, it is what it is. But when you guys see us, make sure that you like, follow, and comment both of our pages in order for us to go ahead and keep you guys in tune with some of the things that are happening, not only in my town, but also in Ryan's world. So, man, I tell you what, thank you for taking some time off this morning and giving us a rundown on the best boxing that's coming to the area. And hopefully we could go ahead and start talking a little bit about MMA the next time around, because we knew that some of our followers were saying, hey, you know what you should do is talk a little bit about MMA. So we'll try to incorporate some of that stuff. And to me, like Ryan has said earlier, is that we need some fighters that are willing to go ahead and make a stage so we could talk about it more often than usual. So with that being said, man, Ryan, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Gloves Off. And we forgot your background, bro. We need to get back up.
Yeah, so, I guess I need to get my background. I forgot to do that. Well, oh well.
It's all good, my friend. So with that, dude, I'm out. I got things to do. You all got things to do. So peace.
Peace. Have a good day, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ring where words pack as much punch as fists. This is Gloves Off with your hosts, the one and only founder and CEO of the Prez Kit Times, San Martin Rodriguez, and joining him, the award-winning sports writer and analyst Ryan O'Hara, ready to dive deep into the heart of combat sports. Together, they're here to break down barriers, bring you the latest insights, and go beyond the surface of boxing, MMA, and all things combat sports.